It was just after 9 a.m. on August 27, 2025, when Lexington police stepped into a modest off-campus apartment near the University of Kentucky. The address was familiar to officers who had answered countless noise complaints in the student neighborhood before. But this call was different. A 911 dispatcher had received a frantic report: "There's a baby, he's not breathing." Inside, the scene was eerily quiet. The apartment was neat enough, clothes folded in drawers, a cheerleading uniform hanging by the door. But in a back bedroom closet, officers found what would change the course of several lives forever. Wrapped in a towel, stuffed inside a black trash bag, was the body of a newborn baby boy. The room filled with stunned silence. Veteran officers later said they had seen a lot in Lexington, from drug raids to fatal shootings, but nothing could prepare them for the stillness of a tiny form in a place meant to hide dirty laundry. One detective would later testify that the sight stayed burned in his mind. That morning, the officers had no idea the closet belonged to a 21-year-old senior at the University of Kentucky, a bright, athletic cheerleader named Laken Snelling, a young woman who outwardly seemed to have everything going for her. At the University of Kentucky, cheerleading isn't just a sport, it's a brand. The blue and white uniforms carry decades of tradition, national championships, and prestige. For many athletes, it's a dream come true to wear them. Laken Snelling had been one of those dreamers. Friends remember her as a quietly ambitious student who trained hard and smiled often, the kind of athlete who posted celebratory photos after competitions. In one picture, she beamed under the stadium lights, megaphone in hand, the word Kentucky stretched proudly across her chest. Behind that image, though, life was more complicated. She was juggling classes in Lexington with the constant pressure of competition season, balancing her social life with the perfection demanded of a cheerleader. Like many college students, she sometimes slipped through the cracks, staying silent about her struggles and appearing fine on the outside. By August 2025, Snelling was preparing for her senior year. She had teammates who considered her reliable, coaches who believed in her potential, and family members who assumed she was on the straight path toward graduation. But no one knew she was carrying a secret that could unravel it all. Pregnancy on a college campus is not unheard of, but to carry one in complete secrecy is rare. For months, Snelling managed to hide her growing body, her routines uninterrupted. She kept up with practices, wore team gear that loosened around the waist, and dodged close conversations about her health. Some who saw her regularly later admitted they had suspicions, but no one asked directly. It wasn't until after the tragedy that whispers spread. Did teammates notice her exhaustion? Did professors catch her distracted glances? According to investigators, Snelling never sought prenatal care, no doctor visits, no record of hospital check-ins, no medical preparation for childbirth. It's the kind of secrecy that prosecutors later said signaled fear of exposure, judgment, or the collapse of a carefully constructed image. When detectives pressed her, she eventually admitted that she had gone into labor alone, inside her off-campus apartment, with no one else aware of what was happening behind closed doors. Labor pains began sometime in the early hours of that Tuesday morning. Alone in her apartment, Snelling delivered the baby herself. The details of those hours remain blurred in official reports. What she told police was fragmented and hesitant, and autopsy results have yet to provide clear answers. What's certain is this: a newborn baby boy was born alive or stillborn. Investigators don't yet know which. What happened next is what shocked the city. Instead of calling emergency services or seeking medical help, Snelling cleaned the area, wrapped the infant in a towel, and placed him inside a black trash bag. She then tucked the bag into her closet, closing the door as though she could shut away the reality of what had just happened. By the time police arrived later that morning, the child was gone. The Fayette County Coroner's Office performed an autopsy, but the preliminary findings were inconclusive. The cause of death was not immediately clear. Did the baby die naturally during childbirth, or afterward, due to neglect? Was he born alive at all? That ambiguity meant prosecutors had to tread carefully. News of the discovery broke within hours. Headlines spread across Kentucky and beyond. University of Kentucky cheerleader found with dead infant in closet. Student athlete charged in connection with concealed birth. The image of a smiling young woman in blue and white clashed violently with the mugshot that followed, hair disheveled, eyes empty. Within days, Snelling was formally charged with 3 felonies. Abuse of a corpse. Tampering with physical evidence. Concealment of the birth of an infant. She did not face homicide charges, at least, not yet, because the autopsy had not confirmed how or when the infant died. On September 2, she appeared in court for the first time. Her attorney entered a not guilty plea on all charges. The judge released her on a $100,000 bond. Under strict conditions, she would live under house arrest with her parents in Tennessee. No ankle monitor. No freedom to leave the home without permission. Her next court date, September 26. The case sparked a firestorm. On social media, one camp defended her, painting Snelling as a scared young woman who panicked in the face of an overwhelming situation. They invoked the phrase, hidden pregnancies, and pointed to other cases in which young women denied or concealed their condition until the very end. Another camp, however, was merciless. They accused her of heartlessness, of treating a human life like trash, of prioritizing her reputation over the needs of a newborn. The University of Kentucky issued a statement expressing sympathy for all involved but stopped short of defending Snelling's actions. She withdrew from classes shortly after the arrest, effectively severing ties with the university she once represented on the cheerleading mat. On September 2, 2025, Lexington's district courthouse buzzed with anticipation. The crowd outside was a mix of reporters clutching microphones, students whispering to one another, and locals curious about the cheerleader whose name now filled every newsfeed. Inside, when Laken Snelling appeared in court for the first time, she was not wearing her cheer uniform or the athletic confidence that once defined her. Instead, she wore a plain jumpsuit, her wrists chained loosely in front of her. Her expression was flat, her eyes darting downward, rarely meeting anyone else's. The charges were read aloud. Abuse of a corpse. Tampering with physical evidence. Concealment of the birth of an infant. When the judge asked how she pleaded, her lawyer spoke for her, "Not guilty, Your Honor." A murmur swept through the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Some observers whispered, "How can she plead not guilty? The baby was in her closet." Others shook their heads, noting the unanswered question that overshadowed every accusation: did the baby die naturally, or was his death the result of her actions? The judge weighed her bond carefully. Prosecutors pushed for strict conditions, while her attorney argued she was not a danger to the community. In the end, the judge allowed her to return home, to Tennessee, with her parents, on a $100,000 bond. The condition: she was under house arrest. But there would be no ankle monitor, no visible sign of punishment. The decision infuriated some in the courtroom. To them, it looked like privilege. To others, it seemed logical. After all, she had no criminal history, no record of violence. Still, the release only added to the case's mystique. The central question remained painfully simple: was the baby born alive? The Fayette County Coroner's Office conducted a preliminary autopsy. But the report came back inconclusive. The baby's body showed no obvious signs of trauma, no blunt force injuries, no strangulation marks, no clear suffocation evidence. But there was also no definitive sign that the child was stillborn. The lungs, often tested in newborn autopsies to determine whether air had ever passed through them, offered ambiguous results. Toxicology tests were pending, but those could take weeks. Without a clear cause of death, prosecutors were limited. They could pursue charges related to concealment and evidence tampering, but a homicide case would require proof beyond doubt that Snelling caused her child's death. For now, that proof didn't exist. The legal gray area deepened public frustration. On local radio shows, callers debated fiercely. If she did nothing wrong, why hide the baby in a trash bag? You don't know what it's like to be terrified and alone in that moment. Maybe she panicked. This is murder, plain and simple. The split in public opinion widened into a cultural rift, reflecting broader debates about reproductive rights, young women's choices, and the stigma of unplanned pregnancies. As investigators dug deeper, attention turned to one man, Snelling's ex-boyfriend. He had reportedly been unaware of the pregnancy. According to sources close to the case, their relationship had ended months before. When police approached him after the infant's discovery, he expressed shock. Detectives collected a DNA sample from him to confirm paternity, though results had not yet been publicly released. The uncertainty surrounding the father added another layer of intrigue. Who knew about the pregnancy? Did anyone suspect? Was the baby his, or was there another man in Snelling's private life? For journalists, the unanswered questions became fuel for speculation. For prosecutors, the DNA test represented another puzzle piece in a case already filled with shadows. True crime followers immediately drew parallels to a case from 2017 in Carlisle, Ohio, the infamous trial of Brooke Skylar Richardson, a high school cheerleader accused of killing her newborn and burying the body in her backyard. Skylar's trial had captivated the nation, pitting prosecutors who called her a cold-blooded killer against defense attorneys who described a panicked teen who delivered a stillborn baby in secret. In the end, Skylar was acquitted of murder but convicted of abuse of a corpse. She served time in jail but avoided a life sentence. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Both cases involved young women with cheerleading backgrounds. Both hid pregnancies from family and friends. Both ended with the discovery of an infant's body. Both hinged on the same haunting question: was the baby alive at birth? Commentators began calling Laken Snelling Kentucky's Skylar Richardson. For some, that comparison was damning. For others, it was proof that society too quickly condemns young women in impossible situations. At the University of Kentucky, the fallout was immediate. Snelling withdrew from classes, officially cutting ties with the school. Her name vanished from the cheer team roster. But among students, the case lingered like a shadow. Teammates struggled to reconcile the Laken they knew, the one who practiced late into the night, who laughed in the locker room, with the Laken in the headlines. Professors quietly shared their disbelief, some saying they never noticed any signs of pregnancy. On social media, the discourse grew harsher. Some posts demanded accountability: she threw away her own baby. Others called for compassion: imagine being 21, scared, and alone. Who are we to judge? For the university, the case became a PR nightmare. But for students, it was something darker, a reminder that behind the glossy image of college life, unimaginable struggles could be happening right next door. This case was not isolated. Across the U.S., stories of concealed pregnancies surface with disturbing regularity. The reasons vary: fear of shame, denial, lack of access to resources, family pressure, but the outcomes are often tragic. Psychologists describe the phenomenon as pregnancy denial, a condition where women either do not realize or cannot accept they are pregnant until very late, sometimes until labor itself. Others hide pregnancies deliberately, terrified of stigma. In conservative or close-knit communities, the fear of ruining reputations can be so overwhelming that secrecy feels like the only option. But secrecy often leads to dangerous outcomes: unassisted births, abandoned infants, or criminal charges. In Snelling's case, prosecutors argued her secrecy crossed into criminal territory when she placed the baby in a trash bag and hid him. The defense countered that she was overwhelmed, possibly in shock, and acted without intent to commit a crime. That legal tug-of-war will likely define her trial. As September wore on, the case remained at a standstill, waiting for one thing: the final autopsy report. Would it prove the baby was alive? Would it reveal natural causes? Or would it remain inconclusive, leaving prosecutors without the evidence needed for more serious charges? For now, Snelling sat in her parents' Tennessee home under house arrest. No cheer practices. No classrooms. No campus life. Just waiting, in silence, as the world debated her actions. Her preliminary hearing was scheduled for September 26, 2025. Until then, the case hung in limbo, a story unfinished. Cases like this leave more questions than answers, and we'll be following every update. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next.